misguided, disrespectful, and dangerously wrong. A response to Alyssa Phillip's ill-conceived open letter to Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar, an editorial by Professor Wall Street. There is a certain kind of audacity that masquerades as courage, a boldness untethered from wisdom, respect, or a basic grasp of the facts. That is precisely what Trinidad and Tobago witnessed when Alyssa Phillip published her open letter to Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar. In that letter, Ms. Phillip had the breathtaking temerity to suggest that the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, a woman who has dedicated her life to public service, who has fought her way to the highest office in the land not once but twice, is somehow a puppet, incapable of independent thought, being told what to do, what to say, and how to think.
The statement is not merely incorrect, it is an insult. And Professor Wall Street will not allow it to pass without a firm, unambiguous response.
Who is Kamla Persad-Bissessar? Anyone who has observed Kamla Persad-Bissessar for even a fraction of her decades-long career in public life knows one thing above all else. This is a profoundly independent woman. She is a barrister at law who built her career on the sharpness of her own mind. She served as Attorney General, as Minister of Education, as Leader of the Opposition, and as Prime Minister, not because someone told her what to think, but because she outthought, outworked, and outlasted legions of political opponents, male and female alike, who underestimated her at every turn.
This is a woman who shattered the highest glass ceiling in our nation's political history. She did not do that by following instructions. She did it through independence, tenacity, and an iron will forged over a lifetime of public struggle. To suggest that she is now being told what to do is to reveal a staggering ignorance of both the woman and her record. The context Ms. Phillip chose to ignore. Prime Minister Persad-Bissessar's statement, the one that apparently so offended Ms. Phillip, was a condemnation of calls for violent criminal gangs to unify against law enforcement officers. Let that sink in. The Prime Minister of this country stood up and said, clearly and without apology, that advocating for gangs to wage war on the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is sick and evil. She said it because it needed to be said. She said it because Trinidad and Tobago has buried more than 10,000 murder victims over the past 25 years. She said it because entire communities live in terror at the hands of the very gangs others are now championing. And what was Ms. Phillip's response to this principled stand for law-abiding citizens? Rather than engaging the substance of the Prime Minister's argument, she chose to dismiss it and to dismiss the Prime Minister herself as the actions of someone being directed by hidden hands. It is the classic maneuver of someone who cannot win the argument on the merits. Attack the messenger, not the message. The problem with this kind of misguided boldness.
We understand that Ms. Phillip is young. We understand that passion and emotion can sometimes outrun judgment. But youth is not a license for disrespect, and passion is not a substitute for accuracy. When you write an open letter to a sitting Prime Minister and publicly accuse her of having no independent will, you bear the burden of proof. What evidence does Ms. Phillip offer? None. What specific policy or decision does she point to as evidence of manipulation? None. She offers only insinuation, packaged in language that is as condescending as it is unfounded.
The comparison she draws between the Prime Minister and members of the TTPS, suggesting both are simply following orders, is particularly troubling. It is the kind of throwaway rhetorical flourish that sounds clever in the moment but collapses under the slightest scrutiny. Kamla Persad-Bissessar has challenged the powerful, defied political conventions, and charted her own course for over 3 decades. Comparing her agency to that of a constable following a superior officer's directive is not analysis. It is an affront. Dissent is a right. Disrespect is a choice. Let us be clear. Professor Wall Street believes firmly in free expression. Citizens, young and old, have every right to disagree with the Prime Minister or any government official. Robust debate is the oxygen of democracy, and no leader should be above criticism. But there is a fundamental difference between principled dissent and contemptuous dismissal. There is a difference between challenging a policy and personally belittling a leader's capacity for independent thought. Ms. Phillip chose the latter, and in doing so, she did not elevate the conversation, she cheapened it. She also, whether she intended to or not, lent credibility to the narrative that critics of the Prime Minister have no substantive arguments to make, only personal attacks. A word to the young generation. Trinidad and Tobago needs its young people engaged, informed, and passionate about the future of this country. The nation's greatest challenges, crime, economic development, social equity, demand the energy and creativity of the next generation. We welcome that energy, we encourage that passion, but we also urge our young people to channel it responsibly. Effective advocacy is built on facts, not assumption. It is built on respect, not contempt. It is built on engagement with ideas, not personal attacks on individuals. Ms. Phillip has a voice that could be used constructively. We would encourage her to use it that way. The question for her is not whether Prime Minister Persad-Bissessar thinks for herself. That question was settled long before Ms. Phillip entered public discourse. The real questions are about the issues themselves. What is the right approach to gang violence? How do we protect law enforcement officers? How do we ensure justice is served in TNT? Those are the conversations this nation needs. Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar does not need Professor Wall Street to defend her independence. Her record does that more powerfully than any editorial ever could. But the record must be stated and the disrespect must be named. Ms. Phillip's letter was misguided in its assumptions, careless in its logic, and unbecoming in its tone. We hope she will reflect on that, and that the next time she chooses to address the nation's Prime Minister, she does so with the seriousness and respect the office and the woman who holds it deserve.